Listen. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Thank you. Now today we're going to be looking at Daniel 8 for a few weeks because it's a full, wonderful, exciting chapter. And what I'm going to be teaching you is in the secular history books. But Daniel corroborates the secular history books corroborate the prophecy of Daniel. So what I want you to do is we're going to do a timeline today. I think timelines are so important for students of the Bible. Timelines are as important as maps, aren't they? So take your newsletter and fold it. Let's fold it in thirds. All right, the long way, like this. Fold it in thirds because we have a long timeline. Because it's the timeline of the Bible. And you've seen timelines of the Bible. There's a third, and then you fold it again, and you have 2 lines on your paper. And then just trace those lines. Look here. Just trace those lines going across because it will be 2 timelines. And that'll give you a straight line. I love teaching like this. It's like teaching my second graders, and it took my second graders forever to learn to fold a paper into thirds. So, look at your neighbor and see if they need help. Yes? No, you don't need help, Patty.
Do you remember that this is called the hot dog pie?
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. This is the when we say fold it like a hot dog, you fold it the long way. Thank you, Patty. She taught first grade with me. And then this is the hamburger bun. This is the what? Taco. Oh, all right. Well, all right. That's before my time, you know. Okay, so this is the hot dog folded in thirds like a hot dog. Draw your line at one of the lines because, and you see on this timeline, I have arrows on both ends, don't I? What does that mean when you put arrows on a timeline? It goes in both directions, but we're starting at a certain point. All right? But there's a lot of time before the certain point and a lot of time after the certain point. So put your arrows on there, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. Okay? So put 6 points and make them about an inch apart or something, just like I did. These increments are about 500 years in the Bible, okay? So the first dot to the second dot is 500 years, just about. Okay, here, you got it? To look at your partner and see if they all got it. That's fourth grade talk also. All right, look at everybody, look at your neighbor and see if they need help. Can I move on? Is it hot in here? Now, I sat right over here at a Tuesday morning class and had to put a blanket on. So, I don't know what to do about it. Oh, you brought your blankets. Okay, because it is really hot in here. All right, here we go. On the first dot, put 2000 BC. Now, you know what I would do if I were you is, but I couldn't do it on my PowerPoint. I don't know how to do it. But on your 2000, if you want to, make it on a vertical horizontal line slanted line, right above that dot, and put 2000 BC, or do it whatever way you want to. And then the next dot is 1500 BC. How we doing? And the next dot is 1000 BC, so it's increments of 500 years, isn't it? BC means before Christ, before the birth of Christ, by the way. The birth of Christ, there is... They started it at 1 AD is when they started it. All right, and then 1000 BC, and then 600 BC, so that's like 400 years. And then 430 BC, so my increments have shrunk, haven't they? And then 1 AD was the birth of Christ. So let me tell you what happens in these times in your Bible. Let me ask a question. Why is this important to have an understanding of a timeline in the Bible? Why do I think it's important, since I'm the teacher? Well, because when you read the Bible, you kind of need to know where it is in history, right? Okay, so here we go. 2000 BC is when Abraham lived. Around that time, okay? 2000 BC. So if you want to read about Abraham, read Genesis 12. Put that underneath Abraham's name. And then 500 years later, we meet Moses. Where do we read about Moses and what book of the Bible? Exodus through Deuteronomy. Exodus through Deuteronomy. And 500 years after Moses, we meet whom? David. You're going to read about him in the Chronicles and the Kings. The books of the Chronicles and the books of the Kings. 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Kings. And maybe 2nd Samuel, I can't remember. 400 years after David, we meet the prophet Daniel in 600 BC. We kind of think, I hate to say we, scholars think that he was born about 620 BC. All right? So that's 600 BC. Then 170 years later, 430 BC, is the closing of the book of the Old Testament. That's when Malachi wrote the last prophecy in 430 BC. So when you read Malachi, now you know where he is in relationship to the rest of the main characters of the Bible. So it was approximately 400 years to the birth of Christ in 1 AD. Those 400 years are called the intertestamentary years, meaning between the testaments. There is no Bible record of what happened in those 400 years. If you have a Catholic Bible, you can look in the back and you will find extra books of the Bible. The Maccabees, the books of Maccabees. And they will help you know what happened in those 400 years before Christ. They're called the silent years. Does anybody know why those 400 years are called the silent years? Dorothy does. Why, Dorothy? There were no prophetic writings. There were no prophecies in those 400 years. It doesn't mean that God was not active and involved with the lives of his people. But there were no prophets. Who was the next prophet after Malachi?
John.
Good, John the Baptist. And Malachi prophesies of this man. So be sure and read Malachi, reading it with the understanding that this was the last prophecy for 400 years. And he prophesies of John the Baptist. He said there will be a voice in the wilderness. And that's exactly what John said, wasn't it? So that's a real important understanding there. Do you have any questions about this timeline? It's a very simple one, isn't it? Questions? Yes, Brother Ken. Comment.
You have a framework to hang your thoughts on. It's easy to remember them.
It is.
This is a framework.
Yes, it's a really easy framework, isn't it? Where would you find Noah on this timeline? Before Abraham. Where would you find Elijah? Between David and Daniel. That's right. Any others? Who else? Okay. Let's see. Question? I heard a word.
Jeremiah.
Where would Jeremiah be? Jeremiah lived at the same time as Daniel. So you can put Jeremiah there. Steve?
Was Ezekiel after Daniel?
Ezekiel prophesied at the same time as Daniel. Ezekiel, in fact, was in Babylon the same time Daniel was. Yeah. Good questions.
And Ezra and Nehemiah are also contemporaries.
Yes, Ezra and Nehemiah are contemporaries. Well, they live between Daniel and Malachi. Ezra and Nehemiah live between there. Where would Esther be? Right there with Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay? We're going to look at that next week, by the way. Okay, good. Now then, we're going to take the next timeline, and it's going to be the years between 600 BC on. Okay? Because what I want to show you on this one is the prophecies that Daniel was given in chapters 2 and 7 and 8 and 11. Okay?
So this is in our second one?
This is the second one. So draw a timeline, but don't put arrows on it because we have discrete points on each end. We're going to start here and end here. I love our little Jalen. Hi, Jalen. Hi, baby boy. He's smiling at me. All right. Timeline of the Gentiles. Here we go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. Okay? And these are much smaller than 500-year increments. There are a couple of hundred between each one. How we doing? I hope this helps you. Look at me and tell me if it's helping you. Okay, good. That's why I never get through teaching, isn't it? All right, here's what we're going to do. What was the first empire, Gentile empire, which conquered Israel or Judah? The Babylonians. So, put the Babylonians first. Then the second empire was the Persians. And the third empire was whom? The Greeks. See, we already know all of this, don't we? It's just another way to write it down. And then the last empire over Israel was whom? The Romans. Got it? And you know how all that fits with Daniel 2 and 7 and 8. Right? Here we go. The king of the Babylonians was Nebuchadnezzar. We're going to read about him in Daniel. So put the book of Daniel down there. Well, you can read about him in Jeremiah as well. Jeremiah and Daniel is where we meet Nebuchadnezzar. Who was the king that defeated the king of Persia who defeated the Babylonians? Cyrus the Great. Who was the king of the Greeks that defeated the Persians? Alexander the Great. That's right. And then the Romans, it's all kinds of people. But the emperors are who are real in control of the Roman Empire. Okay, there's the dates. And you can see that these dates, 586, start right here with Daniel to 476 AD, which goes all the way over here. So you figure that one out. Put your dates down. You want me to read them to you? Okay. I'm looking at the timelines now. Look, good job, you guys. How you doing, Eden? Good job. I love our kids. Now, got those years? Can you believe it? I'm being quiet for a minute. I learned that from Kathleen. I learned to be quiet from you. Let people think a little bit. Look up when you're ready for me to finish up with this timeline. Hi, Jaylee. Raise your hand, Jaylee. Real high, baby girl. This is Jaylee. She's one of our new members. Really get to know her. She's been here several weeks now. Alex. Raise your hand. He's writing. I'm sorry. That's Alex. He's been here several weeks now. We're so blessed. All right, ready? Let's see now how long the Babylonian Empire was. 67 years it lasted. The Greek Empire, almost 200 years exactly. So you can see that the Persian Empire, the Persian Empire was with Daniel, and it goes all the way over here, and it was defeated by the Greeks in the intertestamentary years. You won't read about it. We read about the Persian defeat of Babylon because it's in the Bible. But the Greek Empire and the growth of the Greek Empire is in the intertestamentary years. The Greeks lasted 270 years and the Romans 530 years, clear over into 400 something AD. You got that picture now in your head? Okay. Any questions about these timelines or statements? The Babylonians, Persian, Greeks, and Romans start with Daniel. Okay? That's where that fits. Is that okay? Let me go back? Okay, here we go. Ready? Now we're on, I want to tell you what we're doing with this chapter 8. We are going to be studying 4 persons in Daniel 8. Today we're going to be looking at the first person, and that is Daniel. He introduces himself in chapter 8. Then the second one is Cyrus. We will meet Cyrus the Great of Persia. I love his history. The third person we will be studying is Alexander the Great of Greece. And then the last person is Antiochus IV Epiphanes of Syria. Alexander the Great and Antiochus both live in the intertestamentary years. Okay? You will not read about them in the Bible except through prophecy. And Daniel introduces us to them, even though he doesn't give their name. So let's look on page 279. And the first person we're going to meet is Daniel. How old do you think Daniel was when he... Well, it said he wrote this, he got this vision in the 3rd year of King Belshazzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar, maybe the grandson. Well, that was like 551 BC. How old do you think Daniel was when he was writing this vision, when he received it? 80 or 70? I think he was about 70 because he was born around 620 BC. And so this is 551 BC. He's living in Babylon. Even though he is one of the great advisors to the kings, he's a slave, isn't he? All the Jews are slaves. In fact, it was during the Babylonian exile that God's people, the Israelites, were called Jews. That's the first time they were called Jews. So when you read the book of Esther, you'll find Jews, the word Jews. And in Daniel, you'll find a few times that the Hebrew people were called Jews. Why is it that they were called Jews in the book of Daniel for the first time in the Babylonian exile?
Because they came from Judah.
What? Who said that? Thank you, Steve. That's right. Their nation was called Judah. Babylon defeated Judah and took their people. So it was a slang for Judahites, became Jews. And that's where they first became to be called Jews. Daniel is 70 years old. He's living in Babylon, and it is the year 551 BC. Now, the Bible never says 551 BC, does it? It'll say a certain year of a king. So how do we know that it was 551 BC? We have to look at secular history, don't we? And there's all kinds of history about Babylon and Persia by Herodotus, a Greek historian, by how did I lose his name? I have his book. Flavius. What? Josephus. Thank you. Thank you. I almost heard it. Yes, thank you. Lonnie, who? Oh, Lyndon and Steve. Oh, just okay. Somebody back there. Thank you, Josephus. Now he is in his home, and Daniel does not know when he receives this vision in 551 BC that it's going to be 12 more years before Babylon is conquered by the Medes and Persians. But we can look back through the lens of history and see that when Daniel received this vision, Babylon has 12 more years. They were defeated by Persia in 539. This is the first time in the visions of Daniel that he is given really any information about Persia. The first time. We know it's going to happen, but now God is revealing more and more. This is the third time that God has told Daniel about these empires. When God says something one time, we can what? Believe it. It's true. If he says it one time, it's true. But when he says it 3 times, that is an indication that we need to do what? Listen. We need to really listen, because this is very important. You're such a pretty girl. I love our babies. They're just smiling at me. All right. Okay. Yeah. So fill in those blanks on page 279. Okie dokie. Now I need some, Lyndon, I need you to find the pointers. I need the pointers, Lyndon. And I need 2 tall men, I don't care. Or 2 tall women, I don't care. But I need 2 people up here to be the pointers on the map. I'm not going to ask anybody to do it. You can volunteer. Oh, there they are. Lyndon is going to bring you the pointers, and give these men a hand. This is Brother Ken Hess. Don't touch my stuff. This is Brother Doug Ellis. So tell them thank you. And here comes Brother Lyndon. Okay. We're going to be looking at this map of Persia. So point to the words the Persian Empire at the very top right. Do we need to turn the lights off? Okay, and then look at your map as well. All right, here we go. Other light. Thank you, Doug. All right, here's the Persian Empire, Cyrus the Great. And you'll see that his years that he ruled were 559 to 530 BC. So that's like almost 30 years, right? All right. We're going to look first of all, because not only do timelines help us understand the Bible and give us a context for what we're reading, maps. Maps are so important, aren't they? So the first thing I want you to find on your map, and gentlemen, you find it as well, we're going to find the seas. We start in the west with the Mediterranean Sea, and then go up a little bit to the Black Sea. If you go north of the Black Sea was where you will find Ukraine, by the way. And I always remember the Black Sea because it's shaped like a black bean. I've told you that. Some kid told me that, and I thought, thank you for helping me. And then the Caspian Sea, if you kind of look at it, if you saw the whole sea, it would be almost shaped like a sea. All right? And then the Red Sea in Egypt. There we go. There's the Red Sea. Got those on your map, everybody? Okay. Now, oh, by the way, find Jerusalem. It's right on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And it's always important that we always know where all of these places are when we're studying the Bible, with Jerusalem as the reference point. So when we get to Daniel 11, it's going to say the king of the north and the king of the south. North of what? Jerusalem. South of what? Jerusalem. And I'll explain that more. But whenever the Bible gives directions, Jerusalem is our reference point, either north or south or east or west. Now let's find the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. Right there. Good job. Let's find the rivers. The Nile River in Egypt. It flows from the Mediterranean Sea all the way south to something. The Euphrates River in Iraq today. That is the Euphrates River on which Babylon was. And then the Tigris River. Those are the two very important rivers of the Old Testament and of ancient times. And then the last river is the Indus River. The very far, far east. That is the dividing line, or the end of the Persian Empire over there in India. That was a huge empire, wasn't it? Israel was part of the Persian Empire. It was called a province. It was called Judah. The province of Judah. Okay? Now let's continue looking at the map. 4 kingdoms conquered by Persia. You remember in chapter 7, Persia was represented by a bear with one shoulder higher than the other, and how many ribs in his mouth? 3. Those ribs represent the largest kingdoms that Persia conquered. So look first of all at this map and at your map and find Persia. It was just a very small country in 551 when Daniel had this vision. It was insignificant. In fact, it was just a little area in that part of the world that had shepherds and sheep. It just was very insignificant. Now find Media. Persia, look how big Media is, that huge brown area. Persia conquered Media. So when you look at that bear with one shoulder higher than the other, the one shoulder represents Media and the higher shoulder represents Persia, because it became the more powerful empire. All right? So, the 4 kingdoms conquered by Persia, Media, so find again Media. Find the capital city of Media, Ecbatana. You'll read about Ecbatana in Ezra chapter 6, by the way. And so Media was conquered by Persia in 550 BC. Find Lydia, way up there in Turkey. There you go. There you go. There's Lydia. It was conquered by Cyrus 3 years later in 547. Are you with me, everybody? Okay. And then you go down to Babylon, the Babylonian Empire. That was conquered by Persia and Cyrus in 539 BC. Where would you read about that event when Persia conquered Babylon? Where would you read about it in the Bible? Daniel what? Daniel 5. Because that's when Belshazzar saw the writing on the wall. Remember? And that's when Babylon fell. Then go over to Egypt, way over here on the south and west And you will see that it was conquered by Cyrus's son Cambyses in 525 BC. That's how big that empire was. Alrighty? Now, the cities. Let's look for cities on this map. Start with Jerusalem. Always start with Jerusalem in Israel. Babylon, the city of Babylon on the Euphrates River. There you go. It's in Iraq today. Nineveh, go north, and it's on the Tigris River. Nineveh. What do we know about Nineveh? Jonah. That's where Jonah went. Today, Nineveh is the city of Mosul in Iraq. Very, very critical city in the Iraqi war was Mosul. It was used to be Nineveh. What's the other city I have on there? Oh, Ecbatana, the capital city of Media. And now it's in Iran. Susa, that is the capital city of Persia in the Bible. That's where Esther lived, Vicky. Esther lived in Susa. Nehemiah was a cupbearer of the king in Susa. Put on that, in parentheses, under the word Susa on your map, put the city Shushan. It's Shushan today. You can go there. No, we don't want to go there, but if you went there, you will see archaeological excavations of beautiful, beautiful palaces of the Persian kings. All right, it's in Iran today. And finally, Pasargadae. That's in Persia, Old Persia. Right there, and right there. That's where, if you go to Persia, if you go to Iran today, and you go to Pasargadae, you will actually see Cyrus's tomb. And I'll have a picture of that as well. All right. Thank you.
Israel is again.
Yes. Find Jerusalem.
No, I see. Oh, yeah, I see.
That's where Israel is.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was looking for the word. And
Okay, no, it's not there. Any questions on this map? Do you think it's important when you study the Bible that you have an idea where these places are? It will be much more interesting when you can put it in your head where these places are. And the reason I have spent much time on this is because Daniel 8 through 11 talks a lot about these places because we're going to be in the Persian rule. Okay? Thank you, gentlemen. Come get a sticker. I don't know why everybody laughs when I say that. Lights, please, but it is fun to have a sticker, isn't it? Yellow will go well with your shirt.
Come off there. Yep.
Come off of there. Let me help you?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Okay, how many stickers have you gotten today, Doug? This is the second one.
This week too.
What'd you do to get the first one?
I gave you your coffee.
Oh, he brought my coffee and got a sticker. Give these men a hug or a hand. One or the other. Thank you. Doug, you didn't steal my pointer, did you? Okay. He turned it in. All right. Now then, let's see what else I got. Let's look at letter B now on your map, on your paper, right under the map. When was Daniel's vision? I kind of told you already, but Daniel tells us now. Let me ask you a question. What is the difference between a vision and a dream? This is a vision. What is a vision? When you're awake, that's right. And when do you have dreams? So Daniel 8 says that Daniel 7, Daniel said, I had a dream and a vision. In this chapter, we're going to see that he has a vision. So, verse 1, here he tells us, isn't this wonderful? Because listen, when you read the Bible, this is a very important point. You always need to know the context. All right? Context tells us when and where and why and what. Okay? So here he's going to tell us when, and where. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign. This is the last king of Babylon. You will read about him in Daniel 5. I want you to go read this today because it'll make more sense to you now. This is in Babylon in 551 BC. I, Daniel, had a vision. How old was he? 70. Was he awake or was he asleep? Awake. So you can put either note in there because I said when he was 70, or you could say when he was awake. Either one. Because I didn't know what I meant. So, both. After the one that had already appeared to me in chapter 7. He didn't say chapter 7. So where is Daniel when he has this vision? Babylon. In his room, probably, in Babylon. He's about 70 years old, and this vision comes to him soon after the earlier one. What chapter was the earlier one? Chapter 7, and it was the beasts. This is coming real close to that one. And so that's 279, letter B. In the 3rd year of his reign, 551 BC. We get that from Josephus and Herodotus. I, Daniel, had a vision when he was awake or 70 years old. After the one that had appeared to me in chapter what? 7. Daniel is giving us the context of this vision. And it's really important that you understand that he was in Babylon when he received this. Daniel did not know that in the very next year, Media would fall to Persia. Look at your map. This vision was in 551. When did Persia conquer Media? 550, 1 year later. Daniel didn't know that 12 years later, in 539 BC, Babylon would be conquered by Persia. Persia was a very busy nation. In fact, Daniel said his vision said that it was like a ram, and it just ran, and everything it ran into, it knocked over. Nothing could stand against this ram. All right. So, let's look at verse 2, letter C. We know what letter number 1, B1 says when his vision occurred. Now, verse 2 is going to tell us where was Daniel's vision. Physically, Daniel was where? In Babylon. But in this vision, he's on a time machine being transported into the future to Persia. Remember, at this time, Persia is a little bitty, insignificant, pastoral community. Not important at all. But he's being transferred now into Persia in the future. He gives us 3 reference points as to where he will be in this vision. Ready? In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa. So find Susa on your map. Susa was a little town real close to the Tigris River. And this is 551. So even though Daniel was in Babylon, he was transported from Babylon to the future citadel of Susa. What is a citadel? Who said that? Lonnie, quit hiding behind that post. Okay. I do sound like a teacher, don't I? All right. Yes, it was a fortified city. Now, in the time of Daniel, when he got this vision, it wasn't anything. Even though not important, in 551, when Daniel received his vision, Susa eventually became the capital city of the Persian Empire. Isn't that interesting? But when he got the vision, it was nothing. The citadel, a fortified city. You looked ahead, didn't you, Lonnie? All right. The citadel, a fortified city, was located about 200 miles southeast of Babylon. How long do you think it took God to transport Daniel in his vision from Babylon 200 miles southeast to Susa?
Blink of an eye.
Blink of an eye. All right. Now, I would like for you to look at Nehemiah 1. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1. So I'm going to tell you how to find it. Go to Psalms. Well, no, let's see. 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah. All right? These are the last books of history, by the way, in the Bible. Look at Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1. Nehemiah was living many years after this story. Look what he says. This is the words of Nehemiah. Verse 1. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year of a particular king, I was in the citadel of Susa. He was in the capital city of Persia. And go down, please, to chapter 2, verse 1. What Persian king was he working for in Susa? Artaxerxes. Now don't worry about it now. I'm just showing you that this Daniel's vision takes us all the way into Susa, into the Persian Empire. And so I just wanted you to see that Nehemiah lived in Susa. Just go to the next book, and it's Esther. How many of you have seen the story of Esther at Branson? After we finish this unit, you will understand Esther a little better. This was the time of the king Xerxes of Persia. He ruled over 127 provinces. So look at your map. The Persian kings divided the Persian Empire into provinces, like states, 127 of them. And where does it say she lived in Susa? Oh, verse 2. King Xerxes from Persia reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of what? Susa. Isn't that cool? Now you know where Susa is. Now you know how it came about. It was a small town, and then one of the kings made it the capital city of Susa. Today, Susa is known as the city of what? Shushan. What nation is it in today? Iran. That's right. So that's letter C, number 1. Now, so the first reference point that Daniel gives us, where he is in his vision in Persia, is he was in what city? What? Susa. He was in Susa. That's right. The capital city of Persia. Did I not hear everybody? Okay, use your loud voices. Okay, here we go. Number 2. He said, I was in the, Susa is in the province of Elam. How many provinces did Esther say that they divided the kingdom into? Just read it to you. 127. This is the province of Elam. So if you'll look at this map, I will show you. It's not on your map, but Elam contains Susa, and it follows the Persian Gulf all the way down to here. That was one province. Can you give me another province in Persia besides Elam? Judah. Judah was a province too. So he was in the province of Elam, which is southern Iran today. And Elam was founded by Noah's grandson named Elam. He was the son of Shem, the grandson of Noah. So you can just look at that when you're ready to. That's right, baby. All right. Now then, Daniel 6, chapter 1. Would you just turn over to Daniel 6, chapter 1, and I want to show you something real interesting about the provinces. I read to you that in Esther's time, King Xerxes had 127 provinces. Chapter 6, verse 1 says there were 120. Now, is that a contradiction in Scripture? Daniel says 120. Esther says 127. So you can say, see, the Bible does have contradictions.
They weren't at the same time.
They weren't at the same time. Different kings, different organizations of the empire. So here it says there were 120 satraps. Let's see. Ancient Persia was divided into 120 provinces in Daniel at the beginning. 2 of them were Elam and Judah. We know that, don't we? The number of provinces changed periodically. Now then, look further along. Each province was ruled by a governor called a satrap. This is in Daniel 6, chapter 1. King Darius appointed 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom. Okay? Daniel 6, 2. 3 administrators were placed over these 120 satraps or provinces, one of whom was Daniel. So, the 3 administrators were appointed by the king to oversee these satraps. And Daniel was one of the 3 administrators. Now, why did I show you the map and then tell you this? Do you have a better picture? You have a picture of the Persian Empire, that it's divided into 120 provinces. And then there are 3 rulers over those 120 provinces. Daniel was one of them. What does that tell us about Daniel? A very important man. And you know why King Darius placed him over 40 of those provinces? If you would, look down at verse 4. They could find, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs. They were unable to do so. What a man. They could find, now this is what I taught when I was in the Senate. All right? This is the kind of people we need in government. This is the kind of government officials that we should be looking for. Okay? Listen, they could find no corruption in him. He was trustworthy. He was neither corrupt nor negligent. Now that's the kind of people we want administering our government, don't we? All right, look at what they said. We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? Totally honest. And I've got to tell you this. When Lyndon and I won that campaign, 100 years ago now, wasn't it, baby? A long time ago. I realized, it's a big job. And it's so important. And I told Lyndon and I prayed to God, Lord, do not let me ever hurt the name Wilcoxon. Lyndon gave me a beautiful, trustworthy, honorable name. And I said, don't let me mess it up. That's the kind of people, and thank you for that name, sweetheart. That's the kind of people we want in government. That's the kind of man Daniel was. So he was one of the 3 administrators. That was a rabbit trail, wasn't it? That's letter C, number 2. Anybody have questions over that? Again, I'm telling you this because we are going to be learning about this Persian Empire. And it's so important to be a student of the Scriptures, that you have a knowledge of time, that you have a knowledge of maps, that you have a knowledge of government. You have a knowledge of whatever it is that the Scriptures are telling us. Because Daniel and God in His Word thinks it's important that we understand this. And I think it makes it more alive, don't you? Much more interesting. Yes, Kevin?
Not to go too much further down that rabbit hole,
Oh, dear.
but it's interesting to note that even though this empire is depicted as a beast, as a ram that's merciless and just pounds through everything, there was a requirement that it absolutely depended upon people with integrity to make it work. So even in a situation where, hey, this is something God allowed man to do, and He didn't look on it favorably, He still had people who He showed favor to, who were part of it and deeply involved in it.
Good. God's people were deeply involved in this. Yeah.
There's something we got to take from that in our day and age too, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your input. All right. So He tells us where He was. He gives us 3 reference points. The first one, He was in the citadel of Susa, the future capital city of Persia. Second, He was in the province of Elam, and we know about Elam. And the third one, listen to where He's standing. I think this is so interesting. He said, in the vision, I was beside the Ulai Canal. A canal. So if you look at Susa, I love that. He's singing to us. If you look at Susa and just draw a line from Susa to the Tigris River, that would be the canal, right? It was bringing water into the city of Susa from the Tigris River. And that's where Daniel was standing when he saw his vision. He was in Babylon, right? But in his vision, he was in Persia, in Susa, in the province of Elam, at the Ulai Canal. And that's number 3. So, let's read at chapter 8, 1 and 2. I'm going to read it to you now, and you will understand this. Are you ready? In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, when? That's when. I, Daniel, had a vision after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa, in the province of Elam, and in the vision I was beside the Ulai Canal. Y'all have a good picture of this, where this is going to be. Now, in the next verse, next week, we're going to read the next few verses about Persia. And I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to stop. Daniel 8. Daniel 8. There it is. Verse 3. Let's see what happened. You ready? I, Daniel, looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns, standing beside the canal. The horns were long. What's the ram represent? Persia. What do the 2 horns represent? Medo-Persia. Okay. One of the horns was longer than the other. Which country would that be? Persia. And it grew up later. Now look at the description of what this empire will do. I watched the ram as he charged toward the west and the north and the south. Right here, your reference point is Persia, not Israel. Toward the north, the west, and the south. No animal could stand against him, and none could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased and became great. And that's the study that we're going to do next week. Please turn to chapter 11. Verse 2. This is we're going to read chapter 11 while we study Daniel 8. This chapter goes right along with Daniel 8, so we'll have 2 chapters. Now then, according to the person who's giving Daniel the interpretation, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings, 3 more Persian kings will appear in Persia, and then a 4th who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. We're going to study those kings next week. Is this cool or not? Cool. All right, let's pray. Thank you, Father, that you told us this 3 times, that Israel will be under the rule of mighty Gentile empires. They will be scattered across the earth, and they will not trust you anymore. But there is coming a time when another king will be coming, and he will set up his empire on earth. It will be an everlasting kingdom. It will be a kingdom of purity and justice and righteousness. And that king will send forth his messengers to draw all of your people back home to Jerusalem, all of the Jews. You have a great plan, Lord, and we love studying it. I love to study the history because I know that when you prophesy something, it is true. When you promise something, it is yes and amen. We give you all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen. You have a few minutes to talk and get to know people. Thank you for letting me be your teacher.
You're welcome. Very good job.
Thank you.